One day Elisha wakes up. He goes to the king of that city. And he says to him, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time, 7 quarts of flour, 13 quarts of barley will sell for 11 grams at the market in the gate of Samaria. How about that? Where are those prophets? Instead of doom and gloom and judgment and constant words of death to a generation that is crying for light. Will this economy change? I say yes. And it's not because of this present administration. It's because of the righteous of the Lord. That's why. There are offerings coming from the earth that are coming towards God, and He is smelling it. It is an aroma to Him. It is a fragrance to God, your offerings. Now listen to this. Elisha prophesies that. It looks ridiculous. In one day, don't be stupid. And the officer on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, look, if the Lord would make the windows in heaven, could this thing yet happen? I'll give you another translation of that. The vice president of that nation that received a word from the prophet that said tomorrow, 24 hours from now, everything's going to change. This is what he said, even if the eternal carved out windows in heaven, is this really possible? And Elisha turned to him and said, and please take note, there are 2 meanings to what I'm saying today. I'm not just telling a story. In fact, you shall see it with your eyes, but you will not eat it. You will never enjoy what is about to break upon this nation. The king goes back. The word's been given, by the way. King goes back into his city, locks the gates. The vice president goes back and locks the gates. That'll never happen. You know why? Because it's not within our power. 4 lepers are outside the gate. They're not allowed into the city. But the word of the Lord is hanging. It is hovering. The word of the Lord is hovering. Nobody's taken it. The king's rejected it. The vice president has rejected it. Are you listening to me? It doesn't matter if there are just 4 sinners that will accept the word. God will still do it for them. And I say to you, unfortunately, that's the case many times. The church rejects the word of the Lord because there is no faith, and the word rests upon the lepers. Leprosy represents a sinner and the world. You want to wonder why the world always gets it first. Because the church rejects its prophets. It rejects the faith of the prophets. It rejects the word of the Lord that comes from the prophets. You know why? Because if they don't have it within their own power to do it, they don't want nothing to do with it. You know this is true. Forgive me if I've taken your time, but I'm telling you right now, you listen to me. Because I have a sure, pure word from God. You heard him today, taking me over, grabbing the flags. You know something's happening. Now, 4 lepers, they say, why sit we here till we die? He said, if we stay, we're going to die. And if we go towards the promise, we may live. And so they rose at twilight. I love that, twilight. They rose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians, not to the place of famine, but where the food was. And when they'd come to the outskirts of the Syrian camp, to their surprise, there was no one there. No fight, no battle. The spoil is yours. You know why? Because when they started walking towards the enemy's camp, where the word was, where the possession was, where the provision was, they heard the sound of horses in their feet. In other words, the word of the Lord caused 4 lepers to sound like an army coming towards them, and they ran for their lives. Come on! Come on, somebody! Woo! And when the lepers came into the outskirts of the camp, they went into a tent, and they ate and they drank. And they carried from it silver and gold and clothing, and they went and hid them. Then they went to another tent.